Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Chennai Chess Olympiad 2022. It's round number 7. The teams just had a rest day, and round number 7 was crazy. There was a major piece of drama, which I will cover, obviously, in the early stages of the video. The video, once again, is split up into a lot of games. We have 13 games today. We're going to be in the open section, going to peer into the women's section. And then at the end, I've actually saved 3 games for your enjoyment that were totally crazy upsets. Or just like amazing storylines in the event. Without further ado, let's jump into the games. Also, a friendly reminder, today is actually the last day to get courses for 33% off. I set the sale for a week. Use code Olympiad. Link is in the description. Norway is taking on North Macedonia. I didn't even know that they were named North Macedonia. I didn't know that Macedonia changed their country name to North Macedonia in 2019. I never knew that. Magnus plays in London, by the way. And accepts a slight damaging to his pawn structure. Damage might be the wrong word. It's 3 and 4, but he has these double def pawns. And this is one of the ways to play the London. It sends the game into very positional territory. As you kind of notice here, the players have kind of a very set structure. Black is going to struggle to play b5. Yet to be seen what white does with these pawns. Probably will revolve around the e5 square. And again, we have many games to cover today, and Norway is not even doing particularly well in the Olympiad. So Magnus is not going to get a huge amount of airtime. But we had one pawn trade, and Magnus was slightly better throughout this game as he had a pretty good grasp on the position. He had it was very difficult for Black to make a game plan, I guess that would be pronounced Stanoyoski. I don't think it's Stanojoski. I would imagine it's Stanoyoski or Stanoyoski or Stano. You know what? I'm just gonna stop. And you know, Magnus continued applying the pressure down the e-file. We got into a rookless endgame, where white is better because it's really difficult for black to move, and white has a very active queen, and, you know, Magnus did Magnus things. He continuously bothered his opponent. He used the h-pawn as a bit of a, problem, kind of neutralizing the king's ability to get out, making h7 a weakness, and he immediately took advantage of his opponent overextending with g5 to target that pawn, force a reaction, and go to the other side of the board. And, he had a very good position for a very long time, which he then converted into a situation where his a-pawn was just passing, right? So he used the better structure and made it look effortless. And the funniest moment in this game occurred around move 60, when after a series of checks, Magnus got 2 queens on the board and just had to finish off this position. Now, you know, it's +7 and Magnus is white, and you might say, why didn't black resign? I mean, queen and knight against, right? Like, why resign? Play a few more moves. How many of you would win this position with white? A good amount of you would find the right move, which is queen f8 check. But did you know that after queen a f8 check, it's a draw now? It's a draw because you have no more checks, and I'm threatening queen e4 and a multitude of other problems. It's just going to be perpetual. So, like, you know, you have to find queen e f8. Only move. All right? And now the checks come from the side, and I keep checking you, and I check you, and yeah, I mean, black just runs out of moves. Magnus picks up a couple of pawns and just has to make sure his king is safe. Beautiful move, queen h2, you can't take because of the pin. And queen f4, and black resigned because mate is unstoppable. Queen will come back to e1 to meet the king, and it's just game over. Even if king g6, you have this. So Magnus gets 2 queens for the first time, probably in a long time in a classical game that he's had 2 queens. Norway barely wins, by the way. I think Johan Sebastian Christensen lost and Tari won. I think that's what happened. So Norway barely won. They won 2.5, 1.5. Now we go to the matchup on board 1. So it's US versus Armenia. And the first game to have a crazy dramatic moment was this game between Wesley So and Hrant Melkumyan, where black played a Karo Khan and was very solid, but did something absolutely catastrophic on move 18. As white sort of just built up a normal looking position, black struck in the center with the move e5. Now, that move is a good move. You might say, what about d-e5? Well, bishop c5 would attack the rook, and then black would win back the pawn on e5. So instead of that, Wesley played the move bishop h6, which sets a trap. If black plays e4, there is a move here that white is going to play, okay? Which means black actually has to play bishop f8 first, and then when this happens, play e4, which I guess Wesley didn't anticipate. Like, there must have been something that he missed here, and black played e4 and now is completely lost. For an absolutely shocking reason. I guess Melkumyan must have thought that Wesley was going to sack a piece. Wesley took with the rook. The point is that after this, there's queen takes f7. If there, then that's mate. And if here, bishop c4. And geometrically, black's king gets hunted out into the middle of the board and gets mated on f3 with either of these moves. Can you imagine if that is actually what happened? You say, oh, that's not what happened. Why'd you even show it? Well, because it doesn't matter. The move rook e4 wins on the spot. White now has 5 pieces attacking the black king. And so he just sacrifices his knight, has 3 pawns for a piece, and the black king is wide open. And disaster for Armenia as Wesley just wins a completely effortless game. Just 1-0, just 1-0. Like, I mean, just opening goal, 5 minutes into the World Cup final. It's just unbelievable. And Linier Dominguez defeated Samvel Tersahakyan. But the match was all but over. On board 1, Fabiano Caruana, 27-83 against Gabriel Sargsyan. A complicated Queen's Indian. Fabiano does not play Queen's Indian that often. Fabi's looking at the Wesley game like, damn, Wesley, take it easy on him. All right, Wesley beat him like it was nothing. I mean, it was just incredible. I mean, of course, it was a 1-move blunder, e4, but it happens, right? Well, this game was complicated for a while, and Sargsyan must have seen what was going on and decided, all right, look, I got to try to play for a win. Like, I got to accept a slightly worse position, maybe according to the engine, but I have to create some attacking chances. And Fabiano's defending and actually creating a little bit of counterplay. And Fabi had a good position for a long time. Like, Fabi just, you know, built up this very nice queen blockade and queen and knight blockade. But all of a sudden, queen e1, and that pawn's a little sus on a5. And Fabi begins swinging haymakers because he senses his position is in trouble. Sargsyan takes on a5, plays knight h4, and is ready to simplify down into a winning endgame. And in this position, it suddenly becomes clear after 41 moves. White is just completely winning. White is a pawn up. Black's king is very weak, and this a-pawn could be an asset in the endgame, and the knight is just better than the bishop. And Gabriel Sargsyan transforms the position into a completely winning queen and rook endgame, just up 3 pawns, and converts it, hides his king, immediately goes for the black king, who I've talked about is very weak. Fabiano Caruana goes down. Rook g7, black resigns because it's going to transform into a totally winning endgame. What? Fabiano Caruana is struggling mightily in this Olympiad. He is down to 10th in the world, 27-59. That is unbelievable. Fabiano Caruana was 28-32 during the World Championship match, or 28-28. I mean, I think it was 28-32 versus 28-35. This is unbelievable. But this is hardly the drama. The drama was the 90-move game between Sam Shankland and Robert Hovhannisyan. Hovhannisyan was winning by a major margin. All right, he was winning throughout this game. At some point, it was -3. The end game, he just had to find a way through. And Shankland was defending. He was not allowing his opponent in, right? Constantly trying to draw the game because a draw wins US the match and gets them into clear first place. And he got there. In the mid-70s, Shankland actually managed to somehow avoid a catastrophic result and draw the game. Like, he actually got the position into drawn territory after 80-ish moves. He started taking black's pawns. Hovhannisyan was going to win the bishop, but Shankland was going to be able to sacrifice it for a pawn and make sure that he could never lose this position. And believe it or not, this is a draw. It took 90 moves for Sam to finally get the draw, and he played b3. And once this trade happens, the game is over. Queen and bishop cannot beat a queen. In this position, Robert Hovhannisyan, with about 30 seconds on the clock, and Sam with 2 minutes, Hovhannisyan picked up his queen and tried to move it to the corner of the board to give a check. Or so Sam thought. While Hovhannisyan was dropping his queen down, Sam Shankland touched his king and went here, only to realize Hovhannisyan hadn't given him a check. Which means that Sam Shankland has to touch move his king to c1, which loses the game on the spot because black gets a pass pawn. Sam Shankland just thought that he was going to be checked on h1, and he was going to go king c2, and the game was going to end in a draw in a few moves. That is an IRL pre-move. I've never seen something like that. I can't imagine how Sam feels. Sam's a nice guy. I don't want to pick on Sam. But that's crazy. I've never seen something like that. Oh my goodness. He just didn't think that his opponent was going to go queen g2, just to threaten a mate or something. He just didn't. And queen g2 is not winning for black, as long as white like gives a check, maybe queen c2. Well, actually queen c2, maybe you have to be careful. But I mean, oh my gosh. Sam loses. Armenia draws the match. That is unbelievable. Now we have to keep looking around. I mean, we can't just sit here, right? It's going to be a 1 hour recap. So Gukesh versus Daniel Carlos Albornoz Cabrera from Cuba as India 2 takes on Cuba. Remember, Gukesh is 6 for 6. Gukesh plays into an Alapin Sicilian and gets a position early on that's very imbalanced. You'll notice that white has a very, very suspicious pawn structure, but maintains a 1-pawn advantage. Well, Gukesh made sure to trade into this endgame, and I'm just going to click the forward arrow. Watch how he makes it look easy. Developing his rook out of the side of the board, centralizing his pieces, winning back his pawn. Now he targets white's pawn islands, while simultaneously preventing white from getting into the position. This knight has absolutely nowhere to go, and Gukesh just puts all the pieces on all the right squares and sucks the life out of the position, as all the pieces for white have to scatter backwards to play defense. Black's pieces are in perfect unison, and white just is being beaten on all 3 sides of the board. He cannot defend the queen side, king side in the middle. He begins sacrificing to try to break out, and Gukesh just continues to apply the pressure. Gukesh in this game was like the hydraulic press, and the knockout punch of bishop f4 is absolutely beautiful. Bishop f4, sacrificing a piece, and what happens here is that you will win this, then you will win this, and white just resigned after g takes f4, realizing that he was just absolutely busted. Gukesh is 7 for 7. He has won every game he has played. And India 2 is now in 2nd place as well in the Olympiad after removing the Cinderella story from Cuba. Cuba loses in this match 3.5-1/2. I mean, Cuba's had a really good run, but India 2 is just a savage squad of players. Now, on board 1, India played India. So India 1 played India 3, which is kind of unfortunate for the Indians, because someone's got to lose. Top 2 boards drew. The battle on board 4 was unbelievable between Puranik and Narayanan. It was a very complicated Rui Lopez. Black got hostile early, g5. All right, countryman on countryman battle here. And Narayanan started... Narayanan is Indian lad, by the way. You might have seen him in Title Tuesday. He plays a lot. And, I mean, he just put up this big wall and just started coming in on this side. This is, like, very typical. G4, cracking open white's king side. Knight h5, hitting the bishop, taking the bishop. This bishop on b6 will stand here forever, applying pressure. White was completely busted. It was a -2 advantage early on, but suddenly... Black started losing the thread a little bit and played king h8 and allowed white to somehow protect himself. Now it's equal. What? But bishop f2. He served his purpose, sacrificing queen h3. Is it a draw? No, black plays for a win. The only move that holds, queen d4. Found. f6. Queen back to d2. White had to play queen f2. And after this check, had to continue to try to trade queens, but queen d2 attacking this, it was not time to pipe up. You were not supposed to go for counterplay, because after queen h4, everything's defended, and white is about to suffer a bunch more checks. Knight f3, rook e1, queen c4, knight c4, something's gonna give. Rook g8, knight c4, there it is, and queen h2 and rook g1 is an unstoppable checkmate. Narayanan wins a brawling e4, e5 game, slipping for a second, but India 1 knocks out India 3 from contention, at least for now, and they are also tied for that 2nd place position. They have very good tie breaks. A couple of other matches I wanted to show you. This is the women's section, so Azerbaijan and India there are battling, and on board 1, the board 1 of Azerbaijan actually defeated, I think it's Gunay Mamadzada, I think she defeated Humpy Konaru. That's massive. I mean, that's a huge win, but there is a savage on the Indian women's team, and her name is Tanya Sajdev. Oh, and I even gave her the GM title. Okay, she's an IM. But for how well as she played in this game, She should get the GM title just for that. Yeah, I mean, Tanya with white has just been applying the squeeze on her opponents. Like, she plays solid, good foundational main lines, and she just, I mean, she doesn't make a whole lot of mistakes, really. And in this game, she had just a boring old normal pawn structure, and she started advancing into her opponent's position, removed the light squared bishop from the board, and used that freed up e4 square to jump in with her knight. b4 kicked out the piece, and here comes the knight to d6, and now the pawn is there. Now, the engine thinks the game is about balance, but this is annoying. And if white is able to kind of protect that pawn in the long run, white is going to be very happy. Don't listen to what the computer says here. Knight d2, f3, a little bit of counterplay being created by black. But the rook is just a little bit too offside, and it's, you know, black is trying to play actively, but here suddenly coordination gets cut with bishop c5. That's a problem, because if the knight takes, you lose the rook. So the rook tries to move away, but I'm coming after the rook. Now, you could play queen d5, but Tanya correctly simplifies and realizes bishop f2 wins a tempo on the knight over here, right? And then you can sort of skedaddle, and then maybe I'm going to come in with, well, not with my rook right away, but knight b3, knight c5. I just realized that I said Tanya realizes. What I meant to say is there is this move, bishop f2. And I meant to say Tanya did not realize that bishop f2 was the best move, because after like knight f5, for example, you have knight b3 and like rook d5. And the tempo winning move is going to be the deciding factor in this game. Tanya didn't realize that bishop f2 wins right away, instead opting to kind of slow play the position endgame style, but it's still very pleasant for white because this pawn is it's just an issue, right? It's just an issue. Black creating counterplay over there wins a pawn, but now the king courageously walks up to d4, and white just continues to pile on the pressure. Like, black loses the d5 pawn. Look at this, knight b6, king c6, but the pawn is going. d7, you can win the pawn, but now you're in a rook endgame, and white still has the pawns to follow. And that's what Tanya relied on. She relied on the fact that her b pawn was going to be the difference maker in this game, as she wins the a pawn and just beats the clock. Rook c4 check deflects the king, and this is a winning pawn endgame. I think here there was maybe some moment that maybe black could have defended better, but honestly, I don't think so. I think like the last 20-something moves of this game, Tanya just played perfectly, and her along with India women board 3, look at this final position, it's a hilarious position. It's like Zugzwang. Black is stalemated, but black has to lose a pawn and then lose the game. So yeah, I mean, the Indian women's team is clear first right now. One full match ahead of everybody else. Amazing. Next match I have for you, Kazakhstan versus Spain, looking also to get into second place. Every match was tied, except this one, as Alisher Suleymenov versus David Anton. This was also a Queen's Indian-esque position. Main line, this has been played many times. And white played normal moves, black got aggressive. So David Anton was like, all right, I gotta play for a win with black. You know, because boards are looking kind of stagnant right now, and white's like, all right, you're gonna get aggressive, no problem. I'm just gonna play solid, you know, normal chess. How are you gonna break through? You know, it's kind of waving the flag, right? Like the red flag. All right, in front of the bull, bishop c3, all right, knight g4, and all of a sudden, it's not so clear who's gonna protect. Like, why are the king and the queen defend? Like, right? So f5 gets played. We have en passant, and now queen b6. That knight had to guard that pawn. White is a pawn up, and he's going to get this maybe. He's going to attack in a lot of different stuff here. It's defended for now, right? Bishop d5, rook c1, just solid chess. Bishop f3, queen back to d3. I mean, white's not doing anything complicated. He's just taking free stuff, right? Alisher is he's not reinventing the wheel. He's just up 2 pawns. But now he starts getting creative, because if bishop takes c1, there is a direct attack on the black king. King h7, queen c1. White has sacrificed in exchange, but the black king is extremely weak, right? Queen c2, hitting the knight. Queen e2, looking to get in on the king side. And it's a little bit of a nervy position, because black has no pawns in front of his king anymore. But he's not losing. All right, he can fight back with queen b6, and I'm sure he's aware his opponent is probably nervous to beat a 2670 rated GM. but Alisher rights the ship toward the end of this game, wins back some material, and we just refuses to trade queens for a little while, finally caves in, and has to win this endgame. And you know what? You know what? In an endgame with very little counterplay and just 3 on scattered 2, Alisher Suleymanov manages to advance all his pawns. And folks, you are reading what's coming correctly. 2467, international master from Kazakhstan, is the difference maker as he takes down a 2700 level talent in David Anton Guijaro. That is crazy. Spain loses to the number 40-ish ranked Kazakhstan team, as Kazakhstan is now tied for second place, and Kazakhstan has amazing tiebreaks. We'll talk about tiebreaks at the end of the video. Amazing win by Alisher. Okay, now, I have not featured David Howell. David Howell has been a mammoth in this event, and in this match, Brazil versus England, by the way, again, England flag broken, hasn't been fixed yet. I will continue to show the wrong one, because maybe they will fix it if I continue to show the wrong one. Maybe not. Yeah, I saw on Twitter somebody was like, you gotta feature a David Howell game, and I was like, yes. Also, I'd love to get him on the podcast. People love David Howell. David, this is an open invitation. All right? Open invitation. David plays the Grunfeld versus Krikor. Obviously, we know GM Krikor streams a lot. And a mainline position early on. This has been played a million times. David fought back to equalize for the majority of the opening. Like, this is a very, very pleasant position for White, who enjoys a 4-on-1 structure, good rook activity, kind of good pressure on the black position. It's just a beautiful position for black. But David begins fighting back with f5. All right, that is a temporary sacrifice of a pawn that actually Krikor decided not to accept because I guess he thought that he was ruining his pawn structure. And David, slowly but surely, consolidated his position and was no longer worse in the 30s. I mean, it took him 30 moves to equalize, but now he's doing quite well. And he now has the Grunfeld 2-on-1, okay? And if this proves to be successful, Black's just going to win. Black oftentimes gets advantages in these Grunfeld endgames, and you're sort of seeing it happen. David showing tremendous understanding here, using the position the perfect way, getting into a pawn-up endgame, and just he begins advancing the a-pawn, and the a-pawn's going to be the difference. Trust me. And look at this. The Black King is coming to help. The last pawn that survives is the a-pawn. And the pawn, look at this. Look at this. The whole squad is defending the passing pawn, right? Krikor tries to send the game into a pawns versus rook endgame. This is losing because the Black King is able to get back fast enough. So King b4, King c5, King d6, and Rook h2 by 1 tempo. This is losing for Black because there is check. Losing for White. Losing for White, not losing for Black, because there's check. And under normal circumstances, if you played King here and there was King f7, this would be stalemate. This would be a draw. But White has an extra pawn. Black will checkmate you. Well, oops. Will checkmate you. That's the problem. This would have been a draw. But David Howell wins the game, despite it having an under promotion and all that good stuff, because this is actually just losing endgame with this brutal final move. Zugzwang for White. David Howell wins again. He's dominating. But the story of this match, folks, the story of this match was Brazil. Fier versus McShane was a very complicated Rossalimo Sicilian, and it led to a super imbalanced fight between McShane and Fier. Look at this, knight e6, takes the queen, check here, and then, White kind of has a slightly better pawn structure, but Black is not just going to give up. He's obviously going to fight back. Bishop a3, rook c1, and, McShane is doing 2700 level things. He's trying to beat his opponent in a long, grindy game, but he allows a couple of weaknesses, and Fier is like, I'm not going to get slowly outplayed. Time for me to create some counterplay. All right, f6. Now, admittedly, Fier here has probably the ugliest pawn structure in history, but Fier is up 2 pawns. Like, his pawns are tripled and isolated in the center of the board, but he's up 2 pawns. 2 pawns is 2 pawns, okay? Doesn't matter, right? Knight e4, and he's up 2 pawns, and as long as he continues to be up at least a pawn, he's going to be in good shape. He continues to bother McShane. At some point, the light-squared bishop is going to move. At some point, I promise, it takes the bishop 44 moves. 44 moves. Folks, I just want to tell you something. Brazilian fans, I know you guys always want me to cover Brazilian games. Fier played this game with no bishop. His bishop never moved. It took 44 moves to him to move it. It immediately died. And he's just winning this pawn endgame, because in most king and pawn endgames, having more pawns is good. And 4 pawns will beat 2. And that is exactly what happened. And Brazil beats England. Amazing. Supi drew and Diamant won on the 4th board. So Brazil with a massive, massive win against England. They were blowing up the comments. And now, folks, crack your neck. And you're about to witness 3 amazing storylines of the Olympiad. Number 1, Olivia Kielbasa from Poland in the women's side. When I first saw her name, I was like, doesn't her last name mean sausage? Like kielbasa. That like I speak Russian, I don't speak Polish. I know kielbasa means like sausage or I guess ham. But it's not the same spelling, but the Polish fans were actually saying that's correct. Like technically that's what her last name means. Anyway, I'm not gonna tease about that. I'm sure she, I'm sure she would not take too kindly to it, but it's a great name. Better name than, Rosman or Mkhitaryan, no disrespect intended. It's a dope name. Anyway, the story of Olivia in the Women's Olympiad is as follows. She plays chess, okay? She gets better positions against her opponents from openings, and then she outplays them. Now, in this particular case, the position is equal, but she outplays them. Knight d5. Rook f3, rook f4, slow improvement of the position. Bishop h3 shows good space advantage on the king side. Black is going to try to play on the queen side, obviously. Rook b7, c4, right? That's where the space advantage is. It doesn't take long for white to begin generating some play on the dark squared weaknesses around black's king. gf6, very annoying pawn. Very difficult for black to play now, and the endgame is going to be a nightmare, and here comes the white king. We saw that king walk in the Tanya game, right? While here, white just now rotates the other way and sustained pressure on the black position. A rook trade, and look at this. Rook h5, immediately going after that pawn, and she makes it look easy. The black king is now paralyzed on the edge of the board. White just slowly but surely, moving forward, and there's going to be a mating net pretty soon with king f4, bishop c2, and look at this. Look at this, it's forced mate. It's forced mate. Rook h8, bishop c2 is checkmate. That is mate. So black has to sacrifice a rook, but it's just not enough. Bishop c2 and king d4. The pawns will now fall. Olivia Kielbasa is 7 out of 7. She has won every game. They have sat her down for Poland to play every match. She has won every match. Okay? She has defeated 1800, 2100, 2200, 2300, 2200, 2300, and another 2250. Okay? She's gaining 40 rating points. Not bad. Really. It's not too shabby. Another massive storyline. You've seen his name before. You've seen his name. The notorious Connor Murphy. I don't know if Connor wants to be associated with another superstar named Connor, but Connor, I told you, if we're going to feature your games if you win, folks, Conor McGregor, aka Connor Murphy, has won also every match of the Olympiad. He's beaten 2 2700 level players. He's beaten a 2400 IM. And in this round, Ireland was playing against Egypt, and Connor played a super weird Sicilian defense. This is this is some sort of like wicked prep that they have him playing. Connor is a monster with white. I think he's played 5 out of 6 games with white. And early on, against Grandmaster Adham Fauzi, is it Fauzi? I don't know. I'm trying to pronounce it like I'm a bit more Middle Eastern, but I can't do it that well. Connor had a nice position. Okay, he had a slightly better position, but black has bishop pair. The game is not over, and Connor consolidated in the middle. Now it's really up to black to create counterplay against the white pawns. And what Connor did in this game was, look at that. He didn't accept the damage to his kingside structure, got his knight back to the middle of the board, and it just enjoys a 1 pawn up advantage, courtesy of his fantastic opening preparation. But all opening preparation requires you to deal with aggressive counterplay. And as you see in this position, black was not very happy about being a pawn down, so he created a big attack, but queen h3. And after a queen trade, there's no more problems. And now, Connor just has to, don't take the draw, Connor. Good man. Bishop h6, rook e3, And he just consolidates and advances forward. Beautiful play. Connor's going to be up 2 pawns pretty soon. There it is. Rook e1. You can take my knight as long as you give me back rank mate. Black is dominated here. There is no way to create counterplay. You can try to create it on the queen side, but bishop g5 kills the fun, because if takes, and then rook g5, I will trade rooks, take on b7, and have 3 passed pawns. And Connor Murphy, ladies and gentlemen, is 6 for 6, beating 3 grandmasters, beating an IM rated 2400. He has a performance rating of 3,200 himself. He's gaining like 40 points. He's gonna have a 7-round GM norm. That's almost never happened. A GM norm requires you to play at least 9 rounds. If you only play 7 games, they have to count your other games as losses. And if you still make the GM title or the norm, that means you got a GM norm in 7 rounds. I think Connor Murphy is gonna get a GM norm in 6 or 7 rounds. It's unbelievable. His performance rating is in another atmosphere right now. There's no such thing as another atmosphere, another universe. I don't know, guys. I'm a chess streamer. I'm not very good with my words. The final game that I have for you is from the matchup between Poland and the Philippines. Although Mark Parag was a New Yorker at this point, like, he's from the Philippines, born and raised, but like I saw him like 2 weeks ago. He lives in New York, I think, mostly now. But he still reps Philippines, and he plays in a lot of tournaments here in New York and in the US. He plays the knight off with black against young Krzysztof Duda. We have an Adams attack with h3, h5 played by black, preventing g4. Very edgy, topical line. And Duda plays in a very strange way. I've never seen someone play bishop takes f6 so early. But obviously, white just wants to control the d5 square. Position is equal. It's not the most critical way for black to play. For white to play, sorry. And Paragua just does what you're supposed to do in, Grunfeld position. I mean, sorry, knight off position. He just develops, pieces, castles, and plays h4 to kind of prevent anything from moving over here. Now here, Duda plays b4, which is a very aggressive move considering he's castled that way and now wins a pawn. That pawn is the forbidden fruit sometimes of the black position, because black immediately begins creating counterplay, and who even knows if taking that pawn was good. Knight b6. Knight d5, and here, rather than playing knight takes d5, which would have just led to this position, Duda plays rook takes d5. He sacrifices an exchange in order to have a very powerful knight. So I guess Duda just wanted this really powerful knight, and then he would have built behind it or maybe played g3. Duda goes here, and Parag was like, wait, why am I even sitting? I'm going to play a5. a5 to try to open up the a file. And here, Duda plays a move that, for the life of me, I do not understand. I don't understand it, because if you know your opponent is trying to open the position, why not play b5? Now, I'm not 2700. I know what it feels like to make mistakes over the board. I would not dare to say I'm anywhere near the level of Duda, but why not play b5? Like, is black going to play a4? I just don't know. I don't know. Duda plays a3. But black now just opens the a file and goes here, and then here, and then here, and then here to, get out of danger. But this is like a belligerent attack. And I don't know what young Krzysztof thought there was or was not. That is 19 points of material barreling down on the a file. And Paragua correctly simplifies the position trying to get a queen trade. Paragua just defeated Duda. He's won the game. Duda resigns because after this, there is e4. And white can only cover up so long, all right? White can only cover up so long. A 2461 rated Mark Paragua. Mark Paragua has been 2600, all right? But he's lost some points over the years. 300-point upset against one of the top 15 players in the world. That is incredible. And because of that, the Philippines tied with Poland 2-2. What a round. Folks, use code Olympiad. Today's the final day of the sale. Link is in the description. I hope you enjoyed today's recap. Unbelievable amounts of drama. Olympiad resumes tomorrow. Get out of here.